Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hi-Fi Preschool and Kids Weekly Training Podcast. We are so excited that all of you are joining us. And here at Hi-Fi, we are continuing to look at that truth of I am never alone and God is always with me. And of course, I can't do this on my own. So today I am joined by two amazing people. We have Frank and we have Kayla. How are you all doing today?
Doing well. I'm excited. I love Christmas time, so I'm excited to talk about this.
We are here for Christmas.
I absolutely love Christmas. The music playing in the stores, everyone bundled up in their Christmas sweaters. It is so much fun. So, Frank, Kayla, question for you. What are the best Christmas lights you have ever seen or experienced?
All right, so I live in Nashville, and so they have this thing in Nashville. There's like these lights at the zoo, and they are the coolest lights that I have ever been to. The pictures don't even do justice to how cool these are. They're like these huge like paper lanterns that are just massive and beautiful, and so it's such a unique experience. And so I bring my kids there all the time, and they're just it's just crazy how cool those things are in person. So I think those are the coolest lights I've been to.
They are so awesome. Like they really are massive. Like that's the only way to explain it, is that they are massive. And plus the animals are right there. So you have like animals on one side, the monkeys making their crazy sounds at night. You have the lights on the other. Yeah, that is a really cool display. Very cool. Kayla, what about you? Coolest, craziest light display you have ever experienced?
Well, now I'm over here, my wheels are turning because I'm like, man, I want to go experience this. I live in Nashville just like the two of you. I have never been here before. And listeners, when I first met Frank a little over a year ago, like the first holiday season, I remember him talking about going with his family. And he's not just saying he really loves this. Like, I think that every weekend, like every Monday, hey, Frank, how are you? What'd you do? We went to the light show. We were at the zoo and I was like, oh, you really like this light show. So maybe I need to try that out, because the kind of the most cool like light show I feel like I have seen recently, it was also in the Nashville area, but the tricky part was it kind of is a bittersweet memory for me. I loved the light show. It was amazing. It was one of those like drive-through, everything synced up. It's really fun. Like, you can throw the kids in the back of the car and have pajamas and, popcorn and hot chocolate and all the fun stuff. But it was a 2.5-hour wait, and you couldn't get out of line. Like there was no expectation. No one knew it was going to be that long. And like you could just see the families as I'm like driving past them. The dads are like have their hands on their foreheads. The kids are like whiny and crying, and like there's porta potties because you got to go to the bathroom, and there's nowhere in this field to go to the bathroom. It was a love-hate relationship. I loved the lights. The lights were amazing, but the memory is a little bit more about the waiting for the lights than the actual lights. So maybe I'll take a page out of Frank's book and I will check out a different light show this year. So
Yeah. The one at the zoo sounds definitely better than a 2-hour wait, for sure. I think the one that I have in my mind, I love the one at the zoo. It was magnificent. It was beautiful. But I think one of the ones I remember as a kid was literally middle of nowhere, Georgia. We had gone up there for Thanksgiving with some family, and this guy had decorated his entire 3 acres with just this light show that you drove through. He had real donkeys that had some lights on them. I'm not really sure how that was happening.
That sounds like a fire hazard.
It was 100% a fire hazard, and I'm pretty sure it's not around anymore because half of it did singe out and just blow.
The things we did in the 90s that just aren't a thing anymore, it's fine.
But it was a great memory. It was a great memory just seeing all of those lights. And I think one of my favorite parts actually about this was it was literally the middle of nowhere in the middle of peanut fields in Georgia. And it was so cool because you would come over this hill and everything is pitch black. There are not even street lights around. But when you would come over this hill, this guy's like property would literally light up the entire area. You could see it from a long ways away. And it was so cool that when you first kind of saw it coming up over that hill, I remember as a kid just being like, whoa, there it is. And being so excited because that's where it was, because it was shining in the middle of nowhere. And that's a little bit about what we are talking about today. We are going to be looking at how Jesus is the light of the world. We're going to be opening up the Bible to John 1 and talking about how the light of the world has come. And I love being able to talk about this to kids because we get to show them that, hey, Jesus isn't just born like everyone else. He is special. He is the light to the entire world. But that can kind of be a big concept for kids to understand. So, Kayla, as we're looking at this truth, as we're looking at this main idea of Jesus as the light of the world, how can leaders really help preschoolers and kids understand what that means and how Jesus gives us the hope when we are hopeless?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's so Jesus being the light of the world, it's such an abstract concept, right? And that's so hard for us when we're teaching kids and especially preschoolers who are so concrete in their thinking. And so as we talk about this week, it's really helpful to know that, I think the Bible story unpacks this really well when we talk about in the beginning, the word Jesus was already there. Like Jesus was with God in the beginning and there was life in Jesus. And the life of Jesus is the light for all people. And so I think as we talk about what it means for Jesus to be the light of the world, it's helpful for as we teach that we're unpacking this in a tangible way for preschoolers and for kids, that Jesus is the one who brings hope. He's the one who brings light in that. And so I think even as we talk about, the amazing Christmas displays and the big Christmas lights, they're there and they're so magnificent in comparison to the darkness that's all around the light, right? And so it's when the light is on that we see the brilliance and the beauty and the joy and the hopefulness. And that light it can be, we can use that kind of talk about Jesus came to be light, to be hope in our world of darkness. So what does it mean that we live in a world of darkness? That we talk about, every week we talk about 3 circles and brokenness and how our world is not like it was supposed to be. It's dark, it's broken, it's hurting. There's hopelessness. Jesus came to bring light, to bring hope, to bring life. And the way that he did that was by making a way for us to have a relationship with him. And so I think the more that we can unpack some of those abstract terms and make it really relatable for kids and preschoolers, I think that's really going to help us as we kind of unpack what we're teaching about and how Jesus gives us hope when we feel hopeless because he came to be our hope. He came to be our light. So he's not physical light. He is a metaphorical light that the world needs. So when we see the darkness all around us, when we look to Jesus, we can see the hope that he brings, the life that he brings, and the joy that he brings to our broken world around us.
That is so true, Kayla. I know that as I'm looking around this season, both metaphorically and realistically, there is a lot of darkness that feels like it is around us. Whether it's the real darkness because it gets dark here at 4:30, or it's the metaphorical darkness of things that are going on in our world that we see all around us. That Jesus is that light. He does give us hope, and not just a hope right now, but a hope for our forever, to have that relationship with God forever. So, Frank, I want to ask you, how can we share this truth with kids who are following Jesus this week? And how can we help kids who are pre-faith understand this truth as well?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things is to remember that kids are really perceptive on how broken the world really is, right?
Mhm.
Like they understand that we live in a broken world, whether you're pre-faith or not. And so I think for kids that know Jesus and have a relationship with him, it's the joy of knowing that even though we're in a broken world, that God is with you, that you're never alone, and you can have the hope of knowing God and being able to trust in him when you feel hopeless. And then I also think for kids that are pre-faith, it's the same idea of knowing, having the understanding of like who Jesus really is, that he died for you, that he wants a relation, that God wants a relationship with you, and that you are loved by him. And the knowing of that relationship, that anything else in the world will leave you hopeless. Putting your hope in yourself and trying to do better for yourself, putting your hope in the things that are around you isn't going to help at all. The only place that you can put your hope is in the light of who Jesus is and who God is.
That's right, Frank. Yeah. And as we talk about how Jesus is that light, as we talk about how he is always with us, there can be that just amazing hope because you're right. Those kids, they see that there are some moments of pain, there are some moments of brokenness in our world, but Jesus can offer us hope. Well, some of you may have checked out the book Flip the Script, and I promise this is not an ad read for Flip the Script, but if you haven't, definitely recommend you pick it up because that is a lot of what Hi-Fi is based off of, about the research that went into that book, about the truths that we use every single month. But in Flip the Script, when we open it up, we can see specifically with this truth of I am never alone. It talks about how when we walk through dark valleys, God is there. When we face the unknown, God is there. When we try to run, hide, rebel, and fight against him, God is still there. His steadfast faithfulness never diminishes. And I know, Frank, you and I were actually talking about Psalm 23 last week of how even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil because you are with me. And I think that is so true to remember. And as we have leaders maybe in our ministry who might be feeling like they are walking through the valley of the shadow of death, how they feel like they are walking through dark valleys right now, I want to ask you too, how can knowing that Jesus is the light of the world help in times when we are hurting?
I think in this time specifically, there's so much joy and so much pain in this time, right? Even as leaders, a lot of times there may be family members that might not be there for this Christmas season or some other things that have happened during this year. And you're trying to look back on that year, right? And seeing all the things that have happened. And when you're hurting and when you're feeling hopeless, you can remember the joy that God is with you, that he's with you in that hurting, right? And talking about like in Psalms, that it's not just you're not just walking through this pain alone, that God is with you. He's the comforter. He will comfort you through these things and he'll get you through them. And so having kids and leaders remembering that God, even when the world around us may feel like that we are not safe or not, or that we're alone by ourselves, that God is with us, that he loves us and that he helps us through that.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think to add on to that, Frank, I would say that, we live in a cultural mindset that if we're paying attention right now, is a lot more heavy leaning into emotional reasoning. In other words, if I feel it, then it's true. And I think one of the great comforts of the Lord in this season, when there are moments of pain and grief and struggle and wrestling with the Lord, is that God doesn't change based on how I feel. So when I feel sad, God is still with me. He's the same. When I feel alone, God is still with me. He's still present. When I feel heavy and like, I just don't know how I'm going to make it to next week or how I'm going to get through this Sunday. I can't conjure up enough fake joy to just like push through. It's helpful, I think, to remind ourselves that how we are feeling is important. It's important to pay attention to. It's important to listen to, and to notice what's going on. But it does not define who God is, and that he is constant. He is steady. His word is true. His faithfulness is true. Who he is does not change based on my experiences and my circumstances and what I'm feeling. And that honestly brings great comfort to me because it helps me remember yes, this world is broken. There is hardship, there is struggle, there is pain, and God is still the same. This isn't catching him by surprise. He's not up in heaven like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I just had no idea that this was coming. Like God is the same and he is trustworthy when we don't know what's coming next, when we are feeling, hurt or we are feeling grief or walking through pain. Even in those times, we can remember this feeling is temporary. God is permanent. And so leaning into the truths of who he is more so than just the circumstances that I am in the midst of is helpful.
Yeah. You have to feel happy to have hope, right?
Yeah.
Those aren't connected things. And it's when you're walking in hope, you're trusting that God is with you because you know the things that he's done in the past is going to be happening in the future. So such a great point, Caleb.
Yeah, those are both great reminders. And I know as I'm going through this Christmas season, as I'm having moments that I'm looking forward to, but also moments that I'm remembering how God has pulled me through them, I know that I can have hope knowing that God is with me in every moment, in every fear, in every anxiety, in every hurt. He is with me. And that's just a great reminder as we close out this Christmas season. Now, we may be closing out the Christmas season. We may be closing out this truth of I am never alone this week, but you might notice that December is not over. There is still one more fifth week of December, and that means it is time for one of our favorite times of the year, Game Changer and Hooray Day. So next week, we are so excited to be taking a deeper dive into the gospel with kids and preschoolers as we talk about living a life for Jesus. So with Game Changer, we're going to be able to dive deeper into the 3 circles of the gospel. We're going to be having some Hooray Day parades. And I don't know about you, but one of my favorite storytellers, Nathan, the hockey player, is that maybe that's just me. No. Okay. So I'm excited Nathan's back, but we can't wait for you to jump into Game Changer and Hooray Day next week, so you will not want to miss that. Until next time, we'll talk to you later. Bye.